Lukas Dostal getting no support again. Shocking. Sound familiar, Ducks fans? Yeah, it should. We'll talk about that on this edition of Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jason JD Hernandez. I've been covering hockey for well over a decade. Also have contributed to Defend the Nest, also the PA announcer for the Coachella Valley Firebirds. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. So as I mentioned at the top, I've been covering hockey for a while, been covering the goals for the better part of nearly a decade. And one of those goalies that I covered for a long time, I see a glare here, so I'm going to take this off. One of the goalies that I saw a lot in San Diego was Lukas Dostal. And I think he's still one of the premier goalies that I've seen in the AHL. I mean, he was an AHL All-Star. He was an AHL All-Star MVP. So we know he's capable. Well, now he's taking center stage at the IIHF World Championships, and this should not be a shock to Ducks fans at all, but he's getting no goal support again. Let me rewind a little bit. 2 years ago in San Diego, Lukas Dostal was one of the premier goaltenders and was even an all-star. Yeah, we've seen that before. And what did he go and do? He was co-MVP of that all-star game. He barely got that because the Pacific Division didn't give him much goal support. Let's go back to 2 years ago again. Actually, let's go back to 3 years ago. San Diego played Bakersfield in that weird playoff bubble and got no goal support. Fast forward to, yesterday. So far in the World Championships, in the 2 games that Lukas Dostal has played, he has allowed only 1 goal, and he doesn't even have a regulation win to show for it. That's ridiculous. Yeah, in 2 games, actually 2+ games, because both of those games went to a shootout. And for Dostal to put up these kind of numbers and not get a regulation win, I mean, that sucks for Dostal. Oh, but it's okay because he's used to this, right? He's used to his teams in front of him not scoring goals. He's used to having to carry the defensive load of any team he's played for. He did it in San Diego. He's done it in Anaheim. He's wanting to borrow John Gibson's taser. I get it. Dostal's having to do all the hard work. And it's continuing. I mean, he just can't escape teams not scoring that many goals in front of him. I feel for Dostal. If it wasn't for that, he would have a few more wins under his arsenal. And I went back to 2021. Dostal, that was his coming out party, was that 2021 season in the bubble and then in Bakersfield during the playoff. And then the following year when he was an all-star, he began his career in Anaheim. And he's come out big time for this Ducks organization. So what's going on here? Why can't he get regulation victories? You can't pin this all on him. I mean, Dostal has to try to score goals himself. He's done it already. Yeah, don't forget, Dostal's had to score. I say this half jokingly, folks. I say this in a slight bit of jest. But when your goalie has to start scoring goals for you, you know your offense is bad. And I say this jokingly because Dostal's goalie goal took place in Colorado in a victory. But just on this tournament alone, I just want to go over the leading results so far. Lukas Dostal, in his 2 games, Czechia beat Finland 1-0 in a shootout. And then they just lost yesterday 2-1 to Switzerland. And you can guess who public enemy number 1 is for that game. But let's talk about just Dostal's stats overall so far. He is leading the world's in save percentage. He's leading the world's in goals against. He's tied for the lead in shutouts. How many wins does he have? Big fat 0. Yep. Can you believe that? 130 minutes because they've both gone to a shootout. His save percentage is a .979. He's only allowed 1 goal. He's got 46 saves out of 47 shots in those 2 games. His goals against average is 0.46. That's below 0.50. That's amazing. After that, Sateri Hari in a couple of games. He's only allowed 1 goal. That's on the Finnish side. He was the other side of that 1-0 game that Czechia won in a shootout. And he's been very good as well. After those 2 goalies, it goes down by a lot. A lot. But Dostal has been by far the best goalie in this tournament so far. He's used to this. He is absolutely used to this. And that 1 goal that was allowed was a power play goal. That's it. And on that power play goal, yeah, that one I'm still a little bit, more than a little bit upset about, because that was kind of a soft penalty that led to that goal in the second game. But going back to the first game, Dostal, he pitched a shutout. In 65 minutes, he got 21 saves, including a couple of fantastic shots from the Finns. They looked good. They looked very good in this game. Mikko Lehtinen, I thought, could have easily gotten a goal against Dostal and just didn't happen. Olli Mata was also very good in this game. But Michael Granlund, remember Granlund from the NHL? Yeah, most of you remember him. He looked very good as well. He's the captain for the Finns. I legit thought that they were going to score, especially in that third period where the Finns were trying to put everything right on net and nothing went through. Nothing went through. Dostal was brilliant in that third period. So props to Dostal. Then in the shootout, he was absolutely perfect in the shootout. He stopped goals from Oliver Kaski, stopped one from Granlund, stopped one from Jesse Puljujarvi, former Oiler, and also stopped one from Oliver Kapanen, and that capped the victory thanks to an Andra Kasha goal. Yes, that Andra Kasha, former Anaheim Duck Andra Kasha, got the game-winning goal in a shootout. So Czechia won 1-0 in a shootout. How cool is that? Ducks pulling through on that one. Oh, but then that second game, that one got me a little bit angry because first off, Roman Cervenka got what I thought was not exactly a light call, but I think that one could have been let go by the ref. So that wound up being a roughing penalty for Czechia, and public enemy number 1, Kevin Fiala. Yes, Los Angeles King Kevin Fiala scored on Dostal on the power play from Roman Josi and Nico Hischier. So that made it 1-0 in favor of the bad guys from Switzerland. Sorry, I shouldn't say the bad guys because Switzerland's neutral. They're never the bad guys. In this case, anyway. So they're never the bad guys. But Matej Stransky did score on their power play to tie things up at 1 goal apiece. Then we go to a shootout in this game as well. And guess who scored the first goal for the shootout for Switzerland? Kevin Fiala. Fiala scored in the power play. He scored in a shootout. David Tomaszek scored for Switzerland. 2-1 in a shootout. Switzerland beat Czechia. Yeah, I felt bad for Dostal in this game. He had the kind of same look that I've seen him have when he's lost games in a shootout, even though he only gave up the one goal. I could see the look on his face. He looked a little bit. I mean, he did look sad. He did look disappointed. I mean, I get it. You're playing in front of your home country. You're playing in front of that raucous crowd. When you are playing for the country on the front of your chest, it means a little bit more. Not that it doesn't mean anything to Dostal to play for the Gulls or to play for the Ducks, but to play for your country, to him, that is the ultimate. And the fact that he's had to work tooth and nail to get to shootouts for both games, he is working his butt off to try to get a medal for his home country. So to kind of see the look on, even though it was on TV for a split second, to see the look on his face, I mean, it sucks. It's kind of heartbreaking. He deserves better. Dostal deserves so much better. Hopefully, he will get a regulation win under his belt as we move further along in the tournament. All right, we're going to head to the first intermission. That segment went really long. So we're going to head to the first intermission right now, and then we'll catch up on the rest of Worlds. Stay locked in. And now, a brief word from FanDuel. And folks, if you haven't visited FanDuel lately for the playoffs, then what are you waiting for? Because it is the NBA playoffs, it's the NHL playoffs, and FanDuel is giving you a great shot to bring home a big win of your own. New customers right now get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, futures, and so much more. Again, $5 bet. Five, folks. Visit fanduel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook and the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. And please, folks, gamble responsibly. Hey, welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Once again, you are locked in with Jason JD Hernandez. Let's talk a little bit more about World Juniors. It's been kind of an interesting World Juniors for the United States because they've struggled quite a bit. In fact, looking at the standings earlier this morning, and we're recording this Tuesday afternoon, the latter game just finished. I'm not going to say that USA's in trouble, but they're doing a little bit worse than I was hoping, frankly. Now, that first game, yeah, I kind of saw that coming. Sweden does have I even mentioned this when I talked about the lineups between the USA and Sweden. I said Sweden had the stronger team. They clobbered the United States 5-2 in their opening match. And this one, frankly, was not close. Sweden dominated, right in the outset. They jumped out to a 2-0 lead. Lucas Raymond looked really good. Marcus Johansson looked really good. Victor Hedman, he's looking really good on the ice. He's looking like a man possessed right now. Joel Eriksson Ek had 2 goals in that one. Yeah, a lot of the U.S. players, they were just chasing the entire way. They were playing from behind. Alex Lyon did not look all that great in net, but he's their #1 goalie. Or rather, he was their #1 goalie, because this update came out from Czechia that Alex Lyon is out for the remainder of the tournament. At least that's what I saw last I checked. But Alex Lyon is out due to injury. So now the US, they're in a bit of trouble, folks. I don't know if they make it past the quarterfinals. Now, they did win their one game against Germany, and that was Trey Augustine in net. But Germany also put out Matthias Niederberger. That's not their #1 goalie by any stretch. This was a battle of the backups, and Team USA looked really good on this one. Trevor Zegras, on the power play, I believe, he kind of was like leaning back and just rifled one from Shane Pinto and just got it past Niederberger. This one was not even close. So Zegras on the score sheet. Yeah, good for him. So That at the time made it 5-1. USA went on to win that one 6-1. Then the last game that they just played, that one went to overtime. This, I think, was the game where USA should have won this game. They came out so flat in this one. I don't think they knew what hit him. Milos Kellerman did get scoring started right away. And after that, USA was playing from behind the whole time. They had to come back from a 3-goal deficit in the third period. We'll talk about deficits in a second. But Shane Pinto scored from Zegras. Then Brady Tkachuk scored. Then Luke Hughes scored late in the third to tie things up. So they at least got a point. But Milos Kellerman, who got the scoring started in the game, he scored in overtime to give Slovakia a 5-4 victory. Going into that game, I thought USA was going to win. I really did, and they did not. So with that, they only have 4 points so far in 3 games. And in a group that is pretty stacked, USA's in 4th right now. They're barely making the quarterfinals right now based on goals. They only have 4 points. 1 win, 1 overtime loss, and 1 loss. Same as France. France is also right there. So in the rest of that group, Sweden is by far running away with this group. They have won all 3 games. They are outscoring everybody by a landslide. Latvia's second. Latvia's goaltending coming through yet again. Then Slovakia, then the US, France right there on a tiebreaker. This is going to be tough because USA still has to play Latvia. They still have to play France. They need to win. Actually, let me just check really fast to make sure that they are playing Latvia. And I'm pretty sure they are, but I don't know when that is. So they are playing France. They're playing Poland. They're playing Kazakhstan. And then they play Latvia last in group play. I hope it doesn't come down to that last game. Looking at their upcoming schedule, USA, they do play next, not tomorrow. They play next on Thursday against France. That's a must win for the US. They cannot let France get into this one. Then they play Poland on Friday. They need to win that one. They need to win that one by a lot. Kazakhstan, they should beat. Latvia, that's going to be a tough game. So we'll see where the USA winds up in this tournament. Before we head to the second intermission, I just want to mention this very briefly because there's one game that I need to talk about, and that was Canada versus Austria. All right, why are we talking about Canada versus Austria? Austria was dead last in their pool. I mean, they were right there with Great Britain. Great Britain is dead last in Group A. Canada was top of that group. Yeah, Austria was in the bottom with Great Britain. And what happened in this one? Austria, they came out firing, and Canada, I don't know if they were not playing for the first 20 minutes. I didn't really watch the first or the second. I actually tuned in starting in the third because I couldn't believe what was happening. Canada jumped out. They had a 6-1 lead. What I saw in the third period, did they just not come out and play in the third period? Or did Austria have a rocket up their butts? Because they scored 5 goals in the third period. 5. So a 5-goal lead is not safe in hockey anymore? Apparently not. This one went to a shootout. Marco Rossi. Yes, Marco Rossi from the Minnesota Wild. He scored the game-winning goal with under a minute left, and you could see the air just be deflated. But Captain John Tavares, luckily, saved the day for Team Canada. They got control. Tavares put it away. 15 seconds into overtime, and Canada escaped, and I mean escaped, with a 7-6 victory in overtime. But because they got an overtime 2 points and not the full 3 points, guess who is right there also with 8 points in Group A? The Swiss. Yes, the Swiss also have 8 points. Yeah, I'd be a little bit nervous if I was Canada. Switzerland's not a bad team. I think they're a little better than we thought, and we're kind of discounting them. Czechia, by the way, in Group A, they're in fourth right now. So Czechia's got to win their next couple of games as well. All right, we're going to head into the second intermission, talk very briefly about the NHL playoffs because there's a bit to talk about there. We'll get to that on the other side. Now, a brief word from Policygenius. All right, folks. So, Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. And with Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. So, Policygenius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through it. Your work life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family's needs, and even worse, it might not come with you if you leave your job. So check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonnhl or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonnhl. Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Once again, you're locked in with Jason JD Hernandez. Let's talk NHL playoffs. None of these series are over. Let me repeat that. None of these series are over. All four of them are still going on. When I saw that the New York Rangers were leading their series 3-0, I thought it was over. I really did. And then what happened during that? Yeah, New York. Well, first off, I'll give Carolina credit for game 4. Freddie Anderson did look pretty solid in that game 4. He looked good in net. Game 5, actually game 4, Freddie Anderson looked solid. 4-3 was the final score. Game 5 of that series, Freddie Anderson, he was on one. He only allowed one goal at Madison Square Garden, including a couple of just miraculous saves and maybe a post that went his way. So on that one, the Rangers were winning 1-0 after 2 periods. And then Carolina played the most desperate hockey I've seen them play all season long. Their backs were against the wall. They scored 4 goals in the third period. And it wasn't the young guys. It was the older guys. It was Jordan Staal just weaving his way in and getting it right past Igor Shesterkin's left pad. Then Evgeny Kuznetsov doing the little bird thing. He scored. That made it 2-1. And after that, that was it. Empty netter later. Yeah. 4-1 winds up being the final score for Carolina. So now we're going back to Raleigh for game 6 of that series. I've got to think all the pressure is on New York at this point. They had it. They had the win. They had the series in their back pocket. They had it. They could taste it. The way they lost game 5, that's got to be demoralizing. I don't know if you watched that game. Did you see the way the fans were leaving Madison Square Garden once it became apparent that they were going to lose game 5? That's a crowd that I haven't seen too often at MSG. Like the way they left, the fashion they left, that did not look good. So the Rangers lead that series 3-2. In the other Eastern Conference series, you have the Boston Bruins. Their backs are against the wall. They're playing the Florida Panthers tonight. By the time this comes out, it could be happening right now. But the Florida Panthers, they lead that series 3-1, game 5 in Florida. I'm just going to talk about this very, very briefly. Folks, what exactly is goaltender interference? Yeah, I don't know what goalie interference is. No idea. But apparently Sam Bennett, He knows what goalie interference is. Am I going to joke about this a little bit? Yeah, maybe just a tad, I guess. Yeah. Um, so Sam Bennett shoved a Boston player right into Swayman, and nothing got called. So this rule from Rule 69, nice. If a defending player has been pushed, shoved, or fouled by an attacking player so as to cause the defending player to come into contact with his own goalkeeper, such contact shall be deemed contact initiated by the attacking player for purposes of this rule, and if necessary, a penalty assessed to the attacking player, and if a goal is scored, it would be disallowed. So there was contact. Swayman could not move in order to make that save. When it went into review, I legit thought that was going to get overturned. It wasn't. That was the game tying goal. And moments later, Florida won it. So 3-2. Do the Boston Bruins fans feel robbed? Heck yes, they do. Were they robbed? I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say if they were robbed or not, but it looked a little bit dicey. So now Boston trying to come back in this series. Can they do it? They need to win 3 in a row to stay alive. Meanwhile, in the West, this has become a series of Ottinger just being fantastic. Dallas beat the Avs last night 5-1. Those fans were leaving super early. The game before that, Dallas won 4-1. Ottinger's only allowed 1 goal per game in Colorado. He's looked good. He is starting to become a hot goalie right now. Watch out. I predicted the Dallas Stars to be my dark horse before the playoffs even began. I'm going to stick with the Dallas Stars. I'm going to ride that all the way to possibly the Cup final. I still think Dallas has a legit good shot to win the whole thing. Game 5 of that series will be back in Dallas Wednesday. The other series taking place tonight, Vancouver versus Edmonton. Vancouver leading that series 2-1, including a fantastic showing from the Vancouver Canucks towards the end. They won 4-3 in Edmonton. That was a close game. That was a fun one to watch. Even though Connor McDavid is Connor McDavid, got to give props to Arturs Silovs from Latvia, by the way. Silovs has been amazing in net. He started off the season in the American Hockey League. He was the number 1 goaltender for the Abbotsford Canucks. Thanks to DeSmith not playing and thanks to Demko not playing, Silovs has been that guy. Now, has he been a little bit lucky? Yes. Has he allowed a couple of goals here and there? Also, yes. But he's still been very good, and I still like Silovs in net for Vancouver. You've got to ride him at least 1 more game. Now, the rumor is that Demko could come back late this series. Could. Don't rush it. Ride the hot goalie and see where it takes you. That being said, we'll see if any series ends tonight or tomorrow. We'll keep an eye on that. All right, fans, we're going to wrap this up right here. I am going to have another podcast very soon because we've got some big news to talk about on the Ducks front. And the reason I didn't mention it here is because I want to devote an entire episode to some changes that are taking place in the Ducks organization. Yeah, it's pretty big news, folks. I'm happy about it. In the meantime, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Don't forget this podcast is free and available across all platforms, including Stitcher, Spotify, Odyssey, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, ad-free on Amazon. We're also on YouTube. Don't forget to click the links down below. You could follow me on Twitter X at StimpyJD. The show's Twitter is at LO_Ducks. And you could email me your questions or whatnot. Locked on AnaheimDucks at gmail.com. Mailbag, we're not going to do another one for a while, just FYI, because we've got a lot other stuff to talk about pretty soon. I'll do a draft breakdown very soon. In the meantime, thanks for your continued support. It is so greatly appreciated. Also, don't forget to check out the Locked On Sports Today YouTube channel, the 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and also on Amazon Fire TV and the Fire TV channel's app. So make sure to check that out there. For Locked On Anaheim Ducks, I'm Jason JD Hernandez saying have a great rest of the day. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. And Ducks fly together.